Okay, so we've got a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Joanna here. You are the CEO and co-founder of HopSkipDrive, which is bringing an entirely different approach to transportation with schools. I mean, you have this marketplace that people get connected if they need extra support. You have people that you're using AI, using technology to just streamline the process of how transportation generally works. And now you've got, thousands and thousands of schools that are using this system. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into what you're doing.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So Joanna, how did you get interested in this space? I mean, what made you want to solve this type of problem?
Yeah, well, we originally set out to solve a slightly different but related problem, and that really came from the guilt of parenthood, as a lot of these problems often do. But about 10 years ago, I was really struggling as a full-time working mom, getting my own kids to school and to after-school activities. And so there was three of us that started Hop Skip Drive. We are all moms. We have 8 kids between us, and we were dying. And my son was 6 at the time. He wanted to do karate on Thursday at 3 o'clock, and I had no way of getting him there. And we figured there had to be a better way. And there wasn't. And so we built Hop Skip Drive as a very safe transportation solution for kids, and started as a consumer business, really to help families like ours. Built it really from the ground up, designed for kids with safety in mind, with the question of, what would I need to see to put Jackson or Sam in a Hop Skip Drive, and really designed it from those principles from the very beginning. And started helping thousands of families across California, and then realized that school transportation in general, as schools provide transportation, it's a $30 billion industry. It is massively outdated and very inefficient and very expensive, but it is one of the most important parts of our education system. It's literally access. Getting to school is literally access to education. And so we started working with districts to really provide more access and really help modernize the school transportation system.
So what was like your first foray into this space? Was it just reaching out to one school saying, "Hey, we can kind of build this for you," and was it more of like a tech play and kind of putting it out there and then just trying to have people integrate the software? Like, what did it look like to get going?
Well, the beauty of building a consumer business is you get these very passionate and avid consumers and advocates for your product. And at the time, LA County was actually trying to figure out how to be in compliance with some federal laws around foster youth. So foster kids who are in the foster system move around a lot. They move home placements frequently, and sometimes they move very far away. They have the federal right to stay at their school regardless of their housing situation. And school might be the one source of stability that these kids have. They've moved home placements, they are not with their biological family, they're experiencing all kinds of instability in their lives. The ability to go to school, see your teacher every day, see your friends every day, that may be the only source of stability that kid has. Transportation is a huge barrier to that right? How are you going to get that child there? If a child moves at 10:30 at night, how are you going to route a school bus to get that kid to school the next day? And so we had a customer who was, working at the county trying to figure out how to be in compliance with this law. She was using us for her daughter. She brought us in to talk to the county about how we could potentially be a solution. And so we started originally working with LA County, driving, thousands of foster kids to school across LA County every day. And that led us to realizing this was a massive problem, that a small vehicle solution is a real solution that schools need, that our technology that we had built, purpose built for kids, was a great solution for that. And so from there, we started working with districts, starting in LA and in California where we were based. And now we're in about 700 school districts serving 13,000 schools across 17 states.
Wow. Well, what did it take to convince these schools to do it with you? Was it the safety aspect of it, or was it more of like just how streamlined their transportation system can be?
Yeah, I think, anyone who sells into schools will tell you it's a very interesting endeavor. schools are they're not the early adopters of technology.
Wow.
And this is something very different for a transportation department at a school who is used to yellow buses and everything that yellow buses entail. And so really it's a lot of education of educating schools that there is a better way, that, they are solving more problems today than they've ever had to solve before. They're being asked to do a whole lot more with a whole lot less. And that, the yellow school bus just cannot be a one size fits all solution. You've got a 72 passenger, 12-ton vehicle that is massive, where you may only need to pick up 5 kids. You've
Uh,
got a bus driver shortage across the country where you can't even hire school bus drivers to fill all the routes that you need. And you've got kids who have more individualized needs than ever. You've got students with special needs who aren't going to their home school. You've got students in the foster system or students who are homeless, who have these rights to stay at their school. You've got a lot of open enrollment. So it's great that kids can attend any school in the district they want to. How are you going to get them there? That really wreaks havoc on a fixed route bus model. And now we're seeing even more pushing to school choice and to vouchers and charters. And so schools are having to really deal with a lot more than they used to. And so our message has really been one around safety, one around technology and how you can use technology to solve these problems, one around community. What we're really doing is building a network of very highly vetted drivers that we call care drivers, and bringing them in from the community to solve school districts' problems. I like to say we're turning community members into school transportation superheroes. Um, and and then, it's about flexibility. Schools need multiple tools in their toolkit. They can't do
uh,
it with just one tool. And so this is about providing more tools to help them solve these challenges.
do you view your model kind of like an Uber model?
So it is a rideshare model, and we are licensed as a transportation networks in the same way that Uber and Lyft are licensed. But it's, that's kind of where the comparisons begin and end. Care drivers, we call them care drivers because they have to have caregiving experience. So to be on our
Uh,
platform, a care driver has to have caregiving experience. So these are teachers, parents, nannies, home health aides, people who know what it means to give care and be empathetic. They go through a 15-point certification process that includes fingerprint-based background checks, and that includes providing education and training on driving students with special needs or driving with trauma-informed care. Because a lot of these students have had some kind of a trauma. So there's a whole lot more that goes into who can be a care driver and what that looks like. And then we've built a whole series of technology specifically designed for this. We call it our Safe Ride technology, where we are monitoring rides live in real time. Our team is monitoring those rides. School districts have full visibility and transparency. Parents and caregivers have full visibility and transparency. It's a really very different system.
What does the vetting process look like? And like, who are the types of people that like doing hop, skip, drive and want to be this kind of care driver?
Yeah. So, again, drivers go through a 15-point certification process that includes criminal background checks, that includes fingerprint-based criminal background checks, checks against child abuse indices and checklists, car inspections, driving record checks. They go through training we just actually launched training on neurodivergent kids and how to
Mm,
work with kids who have neurodivergent issues. And so it's a whole different system. And so we find who comes to HopSkipDrive, care drivers like HopSkipDrive because they're going to make more per ride. It is a premium, but they
mm,
stay with HopSkipDrive because of the mission. They love driving their kids. And so these tend to be, caregivers who might be taking care of an elderly relative or taking care of grandkids, and they drive for HopSkipDrive in and around that. And because it's prearranged, it's not fully on demand. Like you can't go into your app and book a ride and a car shows up in 4 minutes. It's a little bit more prearranged, but that means drivers really have flexibility. So care drivers can go into the app, they can see what rides are available, they pick the ones they want. So they know, what, my schedule is free every Tuesday at 9 a.m. I can drive then. And oh, by the way, I really like driving Sally to school, and they get to know Sally and they develop relationships with these kids, and they really enjoy that. They view it as giving back to the community. Some of them have called it the best paid volunteer opportunity they've ever had.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you created this company 10 years ago, and it's been quite a journey since then. How has the business most evolved? I mean, the model you're talking about now, was that the model you were thinking about initially and it's now just scaled much more?
Yeah, I mean, well, initially it was a consumer app and we were just going to help families all over the country. And so it has changed significantly in that we are now very much B2B, really B2G, and that we sell to government entities with school districts and child welfare agencies across the country. So that's really changed. And the product that you have to build for that has been very different and has really evolved over time. And we think about how to serve all different aspects of student populations, and now we've really built software that allows us to help schools develop smarter transportation plans. So not just what we do with our marketplace, but how do you think about the whole system, your buses, your vans, your small vehicles, and solve for whatever your constraint is, whether it's cost or time in transit, or you want to change a bill time, which a lot of schools are doing. Like, how do you do that in the smartest way that is going to meet your goals without, really increasing costs, or allow you to do it with the number of drivers you have versus the number of drivers you would like to have but can't hire. And so we've built this software. We now work with districts on developing smarter transportation, which has been a lot of fun to see that, because again, I just think that this is all about access. And the more we can help schools increase their ability to deliver access, the more we can help really impact learning outcomes and educational outcomes for our youth.
Do you have like data, Jonah, on like how many more people are now having these learning opportunities or, being a part of this school community because of the HopSkipDrive system?
Yeah, we've seen, one of the things that we hear a lot about is chronic absenteeism. This has been a problem really since, I mean, it was a problem before COVID, but chronic absenteeism really exploded during COVID. And that's kind of the number of days that kids, if a kid misses school more than 10 days, they're considered chronically absent. And you think about that, I mean, that's 10 days. If you miss 10 days of algebra, you're lost. You can't
Yeah.
catch up, right? And so we have seen case studies where we have helped reduce absenteeism. We worked with Detroit Public Schools and helped reduce absenteeism about 14%. We worked with Riverside County Office of Education and saw the attendance rate of this program go from 29% to 79%.
Wow.
So just being able to offer a stable, steady ride to school and have somebody show up at your house. You don't have to go to a bus stop. You don't, something about an adult knocking on the door will get a teenager out of bed, it turns out. And so we have really been able to impact attendance, which we know impacts learning outcomes.
Is there an age like limit? Like, I mean, how young can this go? How old do you think this can go?
Yeah, we start at age 5 or 6, and we offer booster seats. We also now are offering car seats to kids that need that. And we go as old as we need to. There's a lot of youth aging out of foster care that go up to 21 in some states. We also work with seniors, and that has really happened organically. HopSkipDrive is really about being the mobility solution where safety and care are a big part of the mobility equation. And so you think about kids, you think about older adults who need a little extra help, right? Or you might be booking a ride for mom to get to the doctor, and you want to make sure that mom actually gets into the doctor's office, and we can provide that kind of a service.
Yeah, it really expands. There's lots of areas that it can work in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that in the growth. I mean, that's happening organically, which is really exciting, and we know there's a lot more opportunity.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. When you think about just like expansion in general, I mean, is the focus primarily on the U.S. and the U.S. only?
For now, the focus is on the US. We're in 17 states. There's a lot of other states to get to. And so we certainly have our hands full with US expansion. There are other markets where the education system and school transportation looks like the US. And there's other places where it looks completely different. And so there's definitely international opportunity, but we have so much opportunity here that we're really focused here for right now.
Uh-huh. So what does like the next phase of growth look like? There's a lot more schools. You mentioned other states. Are there approvals you're needed to get into in you're required to have for these other states to scale it there, or is it more of a resource challenge? What does that kind of look like? Just making that expansion happen to go from 13,500 to, tens of thousands more.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that a lot of times some of the rules that get put into place for something get put in place at a particular time and then never really looked at or questioned. And so we do see
Yeah.
a lot of the regulations around school transportation were written for school buses and were written 40 years ago. And so an example of that is in Georgia. Up until a year or two ago, nothing, you couldn't do any school transportation that was not in a yellow bus. That law has been changed, and now districts there are just starting to discover what it could look like if you have more tools in your toolkit. There are other states and other markets where some of those laws still need to change to give schools the flexibility they need. It's kind of like we're cutting off schools' noses to spite their faces by not, by putting all of these requirements on them and asking them to do so much more, but not giving them the tools to be able to do that.
So, and is that it's like that in lots of states? They have these yellow bus rules.
They have variations of that, right? Or they'll have rules where you can do it, but basically you have to have a commercial driver's license, right? Or do things that, I think that the intent behind, there's always laws that have intent and then laws that have actual impact behind that intent. I think the intent is safety, which is obviously important, and we need to make sure that anyone driving kids is safe. But safety doesn't necessarily mean some of the things that it meant 40 years ago. We have a lot of technology now. For example, we have, through our telematics and through our GPS system, we have what we call proactive driving. What that means is we can detect a driver's driving behavior before they get to pick up the kid, right? So I can tell if a driver is on their way to pick up Sally and they're kind of swerving or speeding or driving erratically, maybe it's just not their day. And maybe we don't want them driving Sally that day. And that's totally fine. We can replace that with another driver in the system who is driving safely. We can do that in real time. Nobody else can do that, right? Now, that may not match a regulation that says you have to have school bus lights on top of the vehicle for safety, but I would argue that that's actually far more measurably demonstrative of safety than some of the regulations that are in place today. So we really need to look at the intent behind these regulations and what is available from a technology and data standpoint today to not only make sure that we are putting safe drivers with kids, but to actually measure it and improve it.
So with the advent of AI, at least more recently, and what we've seen from there, how do you think AI is going to impact this category?
I think AI is gonna have a lot of changes. While we are incorporating AI in the software that we build to help schools develop smarter transportation plans, and we can, with that, we can help them create hundreds of thousands of scenarios in minutes that would take them 6 months to deliver, to develop and analyze. So we can really help them make smarter decisions much faster and help them analyze the impact of those decisions down to the second or the minute, right? If you change bell times by a minute, here's what's going to happen and here's how much it's going to cost. They can't do that today, but we can help them do that now. We use AI in how we route the vehicles in our network and how we route care drivers and help care drivers make sure that they're maximizing their earnings and getting kids to school on time. We do a lot of things around lateness with AI, and AI is impacting our internal operations massively, right? How do we help people on the team take out all of the manual tasks that they're doing so that they can focus on high impact work? And there's been a lot of effort underway internally around efficiency, not for replacement purposes, but just to make sure everybody's doing high value work. I think that, like I said, schools are not exactly the fastest adopters of technology, but I do think there's so much technology that can be added to the whole system, from planning and optimizing to the software that districts run routing on to the technology in the buses themselves. I mean, think about if we could put the kind of telematics technology that HopSkipDrive has in its app into buses, we could improve safety massively. We could improve on time arrival massively. We could also improve utilization and save hundreds of millions of dollars.
It's amazing. Well, that was all the questions that I had. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think it's a fascinating niche that you're in. It's a niche that I wouldn't have thought that there's this kind of sizable opportunity in, but clearly there is significant opportunity. Um, and I think that it's great that you can have this more automated system for younger people that removes this burden from parents. It's quite a burden. People have carpool systems. It doesn't always work
Mm-hmm.
out. So making this more automated is much better. And I'm just excited to see, who gets the opportunity to learn from that and how that continues to grow.
Well, thank you.